you're effectively forcing your agents to go on Facebook. Well, there's a lot of time-sucking vampires on Facebook. Like, Facebook has literally built an algorithm to try to suck you in as long as humanly possible. And you're encouraging or effectively forcing your agents to go on a time-sucking vampire. Like, that's a very, very, very bad idea. Welcome to the Whissel Way Podcast. My name is Kyle Whissel, your host with Whissel Realty Group and eXp Realty in San Diego.
And I am Bryan Koci, the Director of Media here at Whissel Realty Group.
The goal of the show is to give you the tools, techniques, and tactics to go out there and crush it in your business, whether that be mortgage, real estate, or really just any business out there. And the way that we like to do that is to answer the questions that you have for us. If you ever have a question, you can always go to thewhisselway.com. You can ask us questions, join our email newsletter and referral list. You can subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel, and you can get details on our upcoming Media Mayor Mastermind events, both the live and virtual versions of the event. So thewhisselway.com. If you enjoy the show today, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, let YouTube know you're enjoying the show. Also, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell so you get updated when we release future episodes of the show. And if you are listening on a podcast platform, if you could hook us up with a review when you're done today, we would really appreciate that a lot.
Yes.
With that said, what are we doing today, Bryan?
God, we just need to record you saying that so that way if you're not here, I can just play it. Today we had a question from Susan Estrada in the group. And today we're going to spend the whole episode talking about a tool that we use and have integrated into our business very well. So Susan asked, on a previous podcast, you spoke about what you use for communication within the team. We couldn't find that podcast, but we've talked about this before, but in snippets.
I don't think it's been the focus of
Correct.
the podcast. I think it's been mentioned in podcasts.
She says, right now we're texting and the phone never, ever stops. So what do we use for internal communication at Whissel Realty Group?
Carrier pigeons.
The phone never starts.
Yeah.
We got a lot of pigeons.
You got to be able to get off your phone sometimes. So we just go carrier pigeon.
We have to pay for weekly car washes from the company.
So we were in a very, very similar boat at a previous point where we used to have text conversations. We also had, I think we were using Google Chat.
Yep. For
conversations. Then there were like Facebook Messenger conversations, and then there were Instagram DM conversations, and it was a straight up shit show. The problem was you'd have like a piece of a conversation that was in text, then like the next time you talked about that same thing, it was via like chat, and then the next time it was via like Messenger. It was just a total shit show. And so we needed to get away from that because the conversations were all over the place. And then you're like missing client text because you've got like agent texts that are coming in. So there was no separation between where do I talk to my clients and where do I talk to my team. So it was all mixed together. So that was a huge issue that we were running into. The other really big issue that we were running into was that we utilized a single Facebook group for our internal kind of intranet is what it used to be called. I don't think people use that word so much anymore, but our internal communication system where we would post events, where we would share information and post updates about what's going on in the company and all of those things. And memes, yeah. And that was all going into a single Facebook group, which there's two primary issues there. One, you're effectively forcing your agents to go on Facebook. Well, there's a lot of time-sucking vampires on Facebook. Like, Facebook has literally built an algorithm to try to suck you in as long as humanly possible. And you're encouraging or effectively forcing your agents to go on a time-sucking vampire. Like, that's a very, very, very bad idea. Because before you know it, an hour's gone and they watched a bunch of cat videos and I
go to YouTube for that.
and a lot of dumb shit on there.
Yep.
And you just sucked up an hour of your agent's time unnecessarily. So that's the first problem with the Facebook group. The second problem is you don't have separation where there's a single Facebook group where half the posts are completely irrelevant to a lot of the members of your company. Like, does the person who does your finances really care about like the script to overcome an objection about, somebody losing their job. Like, does your finance person care about that conversation? They could not care less. And on the flip side, does the agent who just figured out how to overcome that objection, do they really care about like which payroll system we're using for our employees? And is this like a paid day off for, our virtual assistant? Like, do you think that the agents give a damn about that conversation, right? So what you're doing when you have a single Facebook group is you're forcing people to have to endure these conversations that are irrelevant to them. And as a result, they pay less attention because they just start to assume that all of the conversations are irrelevant to them. So they just ignore them.
Yeah. So it's hard to filter. So what did when we were looking into a solution, we looked into a couple different options. What did we look into?
Google seems like they've always been trying to do something in this space. They've just never been able to put it together, much like they've tried to come up with like a Facebook competitor and just haven't. I mean, these guys are freaking smart. Google Plus was the last one.
Yeah. And
then they had Google Wave. They've had all kinds of iterations. They've just never been able to make anything stick. Same thing with this, which is surprising, being that like almost all companies run on G Suite, that you haven't figured it out, which there's another version that's out now called Workspaces, which they're trying to infiltrate. We'll see if they can get it together.
Our COO is Google over. He loves it.
Oh, he's a Google guy. He's got an Android. Do you even trust somebody with an Android? Like, people with Androids scare me.
I can't wait for you to go back to Android.
Yeah,
it's gonna make my day. I'm an Apple guy, but I want to see you go back. But
good luck. Yeah, we'll see. So we dabbled in Google's, ad hoc solution that they had. We tried using like GroupMe and some of these things that could like make multiple group text conversations. And if everybody's on iPhone, it's a little easier because you can add and subtract people from conversations. But as soon as you have one Android, it screws that up. So then you can use like a GroupMe to segment out and have different conversations. We tried Slack, which Slack has some really cool things, but it also has a really high learning curve to it. It's not quick and easy. Like it is just, there's a lot of things that are not very intuitive. And even being somebody who literally started hacking computers at 10 years old, if I have trouble figuring out how to use something, I can only imagine how hard that's going to be for somebody who is having trouble just logging into their email account. So to like force somebody to use something that I personally struggle with just doesn't make sense to me. I don't like things that have high learning curves on them. I want things that are easy, at a very low bar, easy to figure out. And so we tried Slack, and Slack has some really cool things. It integrates far better than what we do use with outside solutions. But the learning curve is really, really tough. The cost is pretty substantial. A lot of people are like, oh, we got Slack. We're using the free version. Cool. But the free version only saves so many messages. When we tried Slack, we literally ran out of the messages that were free within like 3 weeks because we do that much messaging in the system. Something where I run out of messages in 3 weeks is not going to fly. That means I don't have any kind of a history or a paper trail where if there's an issue with something, I want to be able to go back and find that message. I can't. So the cost per user on Slack is on the high side. So what we ended up going with was a product that's made by Facebook, but it is a private Facebook for your company called Workplace. And so we've been on that for probably 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, probably about that.
Yeah, we got on it pretty early on, back when it used to be free. And so loved, right, a free solution versus the Slack solution, which is really not free if you want like a fully functioning system. So we ran on it for free for 6 years probably. And even now today, it's like $4 a user versus I think $7 or $8 a user. So it's about half the cost of Slack. And the biggest thing that we loved with this system is that it's Facebook. It literally is Facebook. It's just a private Facebook without all the bullshit. So the benefit of it is it's very easy to use because everybody already knows how to use Facebook. So if you know how to use Facebook, you know how to use Workplace. We don't have to teach anybody anything. Like it's that simple. So I love that it has that quick, easy learning curve. And then the other things that I like is that we can now have different groups. So we have an admin group. We have a open house group. We have a listing group. We have a vendors group. We have a team group. We have all of these different groups and important info groups so we can push important messages out to the team. Like now we can segment out the communication to make sure that the communication is relevant to the audience.
And one of the things that I think Facebook offered that the other ones didn't offer is it solved two of our problems. One, our communication between each other. We can chat just like you would in Facebook Messenger. They have Workplace Messenger. But two, it solved like what you're talking about now is the hub, the knowledge library, the place where you can post and in different groups. So we can have chats that have everyone in a group in our, I'm making it complicated. There's basically two features of it. There's just like you have on your phone, you have Facebook the app and Messenger the app. We have Workplace the app and Workplace Messenger the app. And so we can chat and we can post. So it's funny because this literally came up today. How do you teach people or what is the differentiation? What goes in chat and what goes in a post?
For sure. So the way that we teach our team is that if the message is going to be relevant to others 1 month from today, then it should be posted into a group.
So things like that
would be like, who's got a good plumber?
I was going to say vendors.
That's a great post.
Objection
it's going to be
handlers.
relevant a month from now because somebody else is going to be looking for a good plumber. And now they could go in, they could type in plumber, and it's like, oh, cool. We actually have a list of plumbers that are good. Or it could be, how does the foreclosure process work in San Diego? Well, that is a really good question a month from now. What's not a good, post? So if it's not going to be relevant a month from now, we want that to be chatted. So something that's not going to be relevant from now is like, hey, who can help me out with a showing tomorrow? Like that doesn't need to be a post because that's irrelevant a month from now. So now when I go to search inside of Workplace about things, that post about who can show something for me tomorrow is going to get caught in there, and it's just going to clog up that, search results unnecessarily. So we want to keep chats in chats. We want to keep post in post, not mix them. Because the other problem is if you have people posting things that could be relevant a month from now in chats, you end up with too many chats happening, and then people just tune out because it's overwhelming. Plus, if you have too many questions getting asked in chat that would be relevant a month from now, now you get 2 or 3 conversations happening simultaneously, and it gets really noisy, and it's hard to see who's replying to what conversation, so people just tune out. Whereas if they were in post within groups, then inside of there's threaded conversations. So we know that like all of these responses are to this question. So it makes it a lot easier to find the information that you're looking for.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier on, and I want to touch on real quick, is you were getting to the point where your agents were texting you, your clients were texting you, your friends and family were texting you. We actually have another solution for that. So now we've talked about the team is all in Workplace. Mm-hmm. All the stuff with your clients is all in Follow Up Us.
Yeah, so what's great is my texting is really just friends and family, nothing else. Texting is purely friends and family. And then all work communications is in Workplace chat. And then all client conversations are in Follow Up Us. So now each one has their own distinct place, which is great. The one thing I want to make sure we add on the Workplace chat is that now, even after an agent leaves the company, I could still go back and search like the entire history, every conversation that I've had with that agent, all their posts stay in there. So we still have access to all of that stuff after the fact. We can go back if somebody's like, oh, well, you told me to do this. I can actually go back and find the conversation. Now I don't have to be like, well, where did we have that conversation? Did we have that conversation in a text, or was it in a chat, or was it here, or was it here, or was it? We don't have that anymore. All conversations happen inside of Workplace chat now. So it's a lot easier to find stuff. If I have an agent, sometimes newer agents just need a little reinforcement of what they're supposed to be doing. So if an agent texts me a question on my cell phone, I will copy that question into Workplace chat, and then I will reply to that question in Workplace chat so that I'm reinforcing the behavior that I want them to take.
Perfect. Sometimes we have a lot of people in our chats. We have... in our company chat, we have over 50 people. We probably have near almost 100 people in that company chat. We have 50 plus people almost in the team chat, 20 to 30 in the admin chat. that can get really noisy with some common replies that people do, right? The okay, the thank yous. What have you implemented? And I know this is a pet peeve of yours, and so it's always fun to see when someone does this. What do you not allow, or what do you discourage in those chats?
This is also why I hate Android. So what's beautiful, like on an iPhone, if somebody sends a message and you like the message, you can literally like double tap it and hit the thumbs up button, acknowledging that you like the message, but without having to put an extra message in there. So it just keeps it attached to that one. Same thing within workplace chat. If somebody sends something and I want to acknowledge it, like, yeah, that's great, that's right, cool. I can give it a thumbs up. I can give it a sad face. I can give it a mad face, a wow face, a thumbs up, a thumbs down. Like I can give it a reaction without having to put another message into the chat. Because that's the biggest problem, is if you start having people like, okay, great, that's awesome, yes, woohoo, wait, yeah. Like those are so many unnecessary chats in there that what does is it pushes the actual question or message off the screen, and nobody even knows what the hell everybody's reacting to anymore. So whether it's on an iPhone or it's on workplace chat or Facebook Messenger, all of those you can just hold down on the message and then it'll pop up whatever reaction you want to make. And that will stop you from having another message. It just attaches it to the existing one as a reaction, makes life a lot easier. And it's, despite all of the reminders, people still screw that one up on the regular.
Also, one of the things that we're utilizing even more now, we just spent quite a bit of time on our last meeting talking about this. Talk a little bit about how we talk or invite people to events and how we utilize Workplace.
Yeah, so the thing that I do like in Workplace, especially versus Slack, is that we can make event pages, just like you're familiar with event pages on regular Facebook. Well, within Workplace, I can make event pages where I can have images, right? So you can see what the hell I'm talking about. We can put all the details of the event, the time it starts, the time it ends. We can have a whole description, and then we can have conversations around that event as well for all the people that are going to be attending that event. So I love that because we have a lot of events, right? Between team meetings or kicking Dan Beer's ass in a game of kickball or whatever, things that we have going on, like we need to promote the different events that are going on. And so the fact that there's an events section in Workplace, that's a huge plus. There's a knowledge library in there. So some of the things we started doing is aggregating all of the resources around like working with buyers. So we have like the buyer consultation slide deck in there, the actual questionnaire that the buyer fills out, the images for our buyer process, the videos for our buyer process, like all of those in one place. So it's easy for the agents to find it. Same thing for sellers. Same thing for the different, vendors that we work with. We're like, here's all the information about doing the home light programs. Here's all the information about doing these programs. We can have those all in one place.
Before we end this love fest of Workplace, what don't you love about Workplace? What are some of the negatives?
So we were just talking about events. The one thing I don't love is that the events aren't synced up with Google Calendar. So we have to first make the event page in Workplace, and then we also have to make an event in Google Calendar. So I don't like that those two aren't synced, because Facebook and Google are huge competitors with each other, and they don't like to cooperate. They don't like to play nice.
I wonder if there's a zap you can do.
I should look into it. I'd love that. So that's one. The other one that Slack does that Workplace doesn't is you can have somebody can make a chat, we'll call it, and then you can have people respond to that chat, and it can make it a threaded conversation. So it kind of like sidebars it only to the people that want to stay in it. Whereas with Workplace, which works just like iPhone, is I could go find a message somebody sent, and I can long press and reply to that. So that my response is to this particular question. But still, you might have 2 or 3 of those going at once, and it's all in one linear thread, where on Slack, it'll actually slide it over to the side, and we kind of have a sidebar conversation as opposed to a linear conversation where there could be 3 separate conversations happening all in the same row. I love that Slack will slide it off to the side, and we can have a threaded conversation. So that's a big one, right? As you start to have more and more people, the conversations get really noisy. So that would be like That's a big thing that Slack does have the advantage on, and the integrations with Slack. It's just so easy to integrate from virtually everything. Slack is the most integratable system that's out there, where Workplace has some integrations, but it's much more limited.
One of the things, and you mentioned that you liked it, but I have a problem with it at times. We don't want someone to give a thumbs up in the conversation because you just have 38 thumbs up all the way.
Right, not an actual thumbs up chat. I just want you to react.
Yes.
Using the thumbs up
That
reaction.
being said, I don't love that when there's a reaction, it doesn't always notify me. Or I don't know, and I think it does that on purpose because if you have 50 people thumbs up, that's a lot of notifications. But a lot of times I'll ask you something, hey, you good with this? And you'll react to it. I only know when I go back and go to ask you again, I go, oh shit, he already said yes, but I didn't know you said yes. So so I actually like the thumbs up in small groups. If Tom asks me a question, I can thumbs up send a message with the thumbs up so that way he can get a reaction. But in large groups, it really sucks.
Makes sense.
So I think it's funny when Kyle's like, don't do this. I'm like, and I talk to the media team, like, we can still do it in here though. We're good here.
Doesn't it doesn't like notify you, but doesn't it keep the conversation bold so you know there's like something that happened?
I don't think so. But again, I also run it on my phone and my computer.
We're going to check right now. We're going to see about this, Mr. Koci.
Let's see.
Where's a conversation with you? I haven't talked to you in chat in a while.
Down.
Okay.
We're doing a live demo. So he's finding me on Workplace. You should have thumbs up on a post. So
does that show up?
So no notification here.
Okay. But if you go into Messenger, will it not push it to the top?
Did you do it on you and I's personal one?
Yes. Yeah, the one that you and I are on. Okay.
You're pinned at the top, which is why you're up there.
Okay.
But it doesn't do bold or anything.
So it's screwy because you did it in a pinned conversation. It's cool. There's none of these are perfect.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I think this is important, whether it be this or any tech. Sometimes you can get to a point where you're like, oh man, it doesn't have this. All right, we got to find another solution. And then you'll go look at Slack, and you'll like, I love 90% of Slack. There's 10% that I don't love. So I'm like, all right, well, let's go for another. Now you got Microsoft Teams. Well, let's go do demo all that. Oh, well, it's like 92%. Okay, well, now let's go look at this new Google solution. Oh, this one's actually worse. Like, you're never going to find one that's perfect. You just got to figure out what, are the deficiencies something you could live with.
Yep.
And we had to make a choice between Slack and Workplace. And to me, the ease of use of Workplace was the difference maker. I can deal with some of the deficiencies because I have the adoption. And to me, when it comes to tech, the most important thing to me is that I get adoption. Tech is worthless if nobody uses it. And that's my thing with Slack is that I think it gets underutilized because it's a little bit confusing to most people, self included. Even though I've used it for a couple years with companies that require it, it's still confusing to me.
Me too.
And so you and I would like to consider us in the upper tier of, tech savviness.
And it drives me crazy when I can't figure it out.
If you and I still struggle with this at our level, right? Imagine that for somebody who is at the entry level when it comes to tech savviness. Like, that's my thing. And so that's, I think, a great place to end it is that at the end of the day, when you're looking for solutions, you've got to focus on user adoption being the number one most important thing. Does not matter if it's got all the freaking features in the world. If nobody's using it, it's worthless.
Yep. Cool.
That was a good place to wrap that. So if you are getting value out of the show today, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. Let YouTube know you're enjoying the show. Also hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you get notified of future episodes of the show. And if you are listening on a podcast platform, make sure to hook us up with a review on there. We will dive into our widget of the week here in a minute. But before we do, if you have a question you want to have answered on a future episode of the show, you can always go to thewhisselway.com. You can ask us questions on there. You can subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel, join our referral network and email newsletter, and get details on our Media Mayor Mastermind course, both the online and in-person version, which hopefully will have a date coming soon.
Cool.
Thewhisselway.com.
Yep.
All right, Brian, what's your widget?
My widget, as we talk about technology, I wanted to make my home a little smarter. And and this has been a little pain point of my home since we moved in, was messing with our garage door opener, the motor itself. I, again, got super frustrated. I bought a universal remote control. I just wanted a pin pad on the outside. I bought one, didn't work for this one. So I returned it, bought a different one, still didn't work. And people go, I can help you figure it out. I'm like, bro, I spent an hour, and if I can't figure it out in an hour, I don't want to play with it anymore. So I forgot to return that one, and it sat in my toolbox for a year.
You have a toolbox?
I do. It actually looks pretty good. Jess is over there laughing. So that actually kind of flows into this well. I bought a new garage door motor, and I watched 2 YouTube videos on how to replace the garage door opener in 15 minutes, and I was sorely mistaken. My plan was to take the garage door motor down and put the new one up. And when I opened the box, that's all I thought was in the box. There was a rail and a belt and nuts and bolts. So forget this. So I tried for 35 minutes to try and put it in the same spot. It didn't work. So I quickly called my friend and said, Peter, I fucked up. I need your help. I sorely underestimated my abilities. And 4 hours later, I have a functional garage door. So I went with the Chamberlain. I don't know exactly the model one, but it's Wi-Fi enabled. It has the MyQ app. And the cool thing about this is I can open and close this remotely from my phone. I can put it to where, hey, every time at this time, automatically close the garage door. We've been known to leave ours open from time to time. And I can also have it close when I leave a geofenced area. So if I leave the house and I'm going to work, it'll automatically close after that. So what I really, really wanted, they didn't have. I really wanted to be able to drive up and then open the garage door. So then I've been messing around with some if this and that stuff, but I haven't been able to figure it out yet. But anyways, Chamberlain garage door opener. I was hoping this would be a good app to tell people like, hey, it'll take you 15 minutes. You can replace your client's garage door. Don't do that. Hire someone, pay them $100 to do it, and it'll be well worth your time. But I'm pretty happy with it. Now that it works.
Yeah, the MyQ, and you can add the MyQ thing to an existing system. So that doesn't, like I moved into my new house and I added MyQs on all the garage door openers. So you don't have to buy a new garage door opener. You can add the MyQ to it. I think it's like $20-$30.
I knew that, but with how this garage door opener worked with nothing. Guardian was the brand. Yeah. Literally no, I bought little triggers for it, didn't work, like nothing. It only worked with Guardian. So I gave it to the guy who's building me a playset right now. Well, building my 4-year-old a playset. Say, hey, you want this? I don't know what to do with it.
Good stuff. All right, cool. Well, what I'm going to do for my widget of the week is the thing we just talked about for the last 27 minutes, which is Workplace by Facebook. You need it. And again, it's affordable. It's $4 a user. It's a no-brainer. If you are driving your team to regular Facebook, you are screwing yourself. If you're doing all of this via text messaging, you're screwing yourself. Step it up. Be a big boy. Be a big girl. And get yourself with a system. Workplace, again, Slack, Workplace, both are going to have their pros and cons. Workplace is the jam for us. So Facebook Workplace is my widget of the week.
Cool.
With that said, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Whissel Way Podcast.
See you next week.
Wait. Before you leave, I want to share some more tips and tricks that we're using in our business to take it to that next level. Just click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Click right here.